Hello, everyone. I just want to do a brief review of the Part 3 exam. If you have any questions about the exam or how I graded your exam, please contact me. Any questions at all. Number one, describe the conception of liberty in the Declaration of the Rights of Man. And I'll tell you exactly what I was thinking of was Article 4. Liberty consists in the freedom to do everything which injures no one else. Hence, the exercise of the natural rights of each man has no limits, except those which assure to the other members of the society the enjoyment of the same rights. It's such an incredibly important, influential notion that we as people, individuals, have the right to do whatever we want, to choose to do whatever we want, to be free, as long as what we do does not harm anyone else, which does not injure anyone else, and does not specifically does not restrict the rights of others, the same rights that other people have. I don't think there is a more important idea, and in some ways, we're still living in a world in which this is the conflict. There are people who believe in that sort of freedom, and there are people who don't. But in any case, that was exactly what I was thinking of, that basically defining liberty in Article 4. Number two, describe Kant's idea of enlightenment. Well, he comes right out and says in the beginning that enlightenment is leaving our self-incurred immaturity and learning how to think for ourselves, how to use our reason without the guidance of another. It's pretty straightforward, and incredibly important idea, and I think Kant pretty clearly lays that out in the beginning of what is enlightenment. Number three, describe what Kant thinks is necessary for society to reach enlightenment. He comes out and says, all that's needed for enlightenment is freedom. So freedom, in general, I suppose, might have been a sufficient answer, might have been a partial answer. The full answer is freedom, but he does specify what kind of freedom. He doesn't think absolute freedom. That's not what he actually advocates in what is enlightenment. As you know, he does think there's restrictions on freedom. So what sort of freedom is he talking about? The freedom to use your reason in public matters in an absolutely free way, an unrestricted way. Freedom of the public use of reason, which is basically free speech. Not in every particular guise we may have, right? The whole idea of the private use of reason can be restricted, but the freedom of the public use of reason, which basically means freedom of speech in general, so that there's some arena or area of life in which we can all speak freely to each other. And that basically is, as he says, the public use of reason, the use of reason that he says a scholar would make use of, which is all of us when we address the public. So the answer is freedom, but more particularly freedom of speech, with those qualifications. Question 4, and this was very open-ended because I'm trying to give you a question about Wollstonecraft that is characterizing what she's getting at as a whole in those several readings we did. In your own words, identify and describe the main idea that Wollstonecraft is arguing for in her work. I allowed for considerable leeway in this question because I think you sort of have to sit back and say, what was she getting at? There's many ways of putting it. That she was arguing that women are stunted in their development because of the prejudices that are so strongly entrenched in our society, or her society at least, that women are not allowed to develop themselves the way that men are, at least some men, at least some privileged men. And that this is harmful to women and harmful to society in general. And that at the very least, women should be given educational opportunities and opportunities to develop themselves, generally speaking, through education of different sorts. And that it's only then that we'll find out if men and women really are equal, I think is what she's saying. Because right now women are so restricted in their self-development that we can't even really know. But one of her points to is that so many people are restricted in their development. So many people lack the kind of educative experiences that you think are really necessary for a human being to fully develop, for reasons of class, economic class, and other reasons too. That, generally speaking, I think her argument, of course, is a feminist argument, but it's also a generally Enlightenment, liberatory argument that all people in society should have the same opportunity to develop themselves through education. So any number of different interpretations, though, I think, but that would be my particular one. Finally, question 5, which is very particular, right? I have this quote from Hamilton in the Federalist, number 1. And what I ask you to do is to put in your own words the question he refers to here. And that really meant putting it in your own words. I think that you'll see that with some people, my judgment was that they didn't put it in their own words. They just quoted it. They just repeated the words that were actually in Hamilton's text, and that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for, what is he saying here when he talks about the question? The actual quote says, "It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country," and of course he's talking about the United States of America, "by their conduct and example, to decide the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force." So what is the question? The question is whether we can actually institute the political foundations of our society by choice, by thinking about it and by debating in a way that is thoughtful and voluntary, and the result of a free discussion and free choice of the kind of institutions we actually want, rather than them just happening or being something that is thrust upon us simply through people who have power. It's not so easy to do, I can see, to avoid the the actual wording of the quote, but you had to try to do something like what I just did rather than just repeat the quote. So it's a kind of a subtle point, actually, and it's put in 18th century prose, which is always difficult. But so that's the exam. If you have any questions, again, if you think I made some mistakes or errors in my judgment, that's always possible that I did. I mean, believe me, I wouldn't never offended in any way if a student has questions or challenges about the way that I grade an exam, because it's a fairly common occurrence. So let me know if you have any difficulties with the way the exam turned out, and I'd be very happy to discuss them with you.